culture. Photography. Fresheye. Lifestyle. Culture. Photography.
This edition is an interview with Morgan Howell, aka Supersize Art. Morgan is a British artist who happened upon a brilliant pop art idea of giant replicas of the iconic 45 vinyl single that came into production in 1949. I caught up with Morgan and asked him about his vision and successful take making 45s great again.
It's fresh, like Fresheye. It's fresh, like Fresheye. It's fresh, like Fresheye. Yeah, yeah. It's fresh, like Fresheye. It's fresh, like Fresheye. It's fresh, like Fresheye. Yeah, yeah. It's fresh, like Fresheye. It's fresh, like Fresheye. It's fresh, like Fresheye.
Yeah, really, really good. It's like, wow, this is arriving, and now it's just going to go into the stratosphere, you know. So here we are. Welcome, Morgan.
Lovely to see you, Dennis.
As the audience probably don't know this, in fact they won't know, but I've known you a while, and I've seen the birth of this idea, Supersize. And it's funny. It's incredible that when you told me about it initially, I think the initial stage was in a pub, and a lot of great ideas seem to be at least talked about or born in a pub situation.
Do you remember pubs?
Yeah.
we were having this conversation last night in a pub just
Yeah.
before tier 3 kicks in, and we can't go to pubs anymore. And what an important environment that is for creative minds. It used to be coffee
Yeah.
shops.
Yes.
You know, the 17th and 18th century, and then the pub.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's certainly, if I didn't have the idea in the pub, but I did all of my research
Yes.
in pubs, talking
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah. And hey, look, when you're throwing around an idea to friends in a pub, you get pretty honest reaction then, won't you?
You certainly do, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
You know, and your close friends will tell you clearly whether something's a good idea or not, especially when they've had a few jars down, and they'll just tell you straight.
Listen, I'm apologising to all of my mates now because I just bored the pants off them for years while I was desperately trying to make this thing work. But I think it's reciprocal. I mean, I've sat and listened to them as well.
Yeah.
That's how these things grow.
Yeah, it is fantastic. I mean, luckily I've shot the space primarily as I've walked in. It's a lot bigger than I thought it was. I think Instagram makes it look a bit smaller. This is a beautiful, beautiful space. I've got some classic questions for you.
Okay.
So one is,
Here I am.
you might be asked this 1,000 times already, or a million more times to come. What is your most memorable 45? It might have been the first one you bought, but what's the one that does it for you? I get the feeling you're a Jam and Clash fan.
Yeah, I'm not.
I
I was never a Clash fan.
Right.
No, I swapped Sandinista for Quadrophenia at the Record and Tape Exchange.
Right.
Actually.
Right.
And I listened to that Clash album once, I think, and I thought, no, that's not for me.
Right.
I suppose the thing that got me doing this in the first place really was thinking about kind of like my childhood and how I grew up, and I got two big sisters. So I would have to say it's probably something like "Don't Let Me Down" by the Beatles.
Right.
So I did actually paint that, and that was my sister's record. So that had been in the house from when I was a child. And I did actually. I was in Savile Row when the Beatles performed it on the roof.
Wow.
I was like 3 or almost 3 in the back of my dad's overheating Vauxhall V.
What a memory! What a memory!
To be honest, I don't remember it.
But you were there.
But I was
okay,
there.
You could say you were there.
Say that I actually did see the last Beatles live performance.
Wow.
Sort of.
That is on YouTube. I can vouch for that. I've seen it. I've watched it many times.
So I think my mum was kind of rattling the door, trying to get past the police. So my mum would have been in the 30s then. So,
That's amazing.
And so that's probably for that reason. And I think everyone of a certain age has got stories around singles, playing at certain times. And stuff that stay with them.
No, you generally have hit upon something that is so iconic to so many people in terms of something they're attached to.
Yeah.
So that is just a pure bit of inspiration there. That's what I would call a eureka moment when you came up with the idea.
It's a classic sort of cheat, isn't it? Really, because my customers don't realise that it's art. They're buying a very precious memory.
Yes.
That's what they're buying.
Yeah.
And this is a memory created by large corporations sort of 50, 60 years ago who exported the music and in this packaging all over the world.
Yeah.
So they did the job for me.
Right.
And I've come along basically and just turned it into a massive 3D object.
And again, it's like it's a flavour of Andy Warhol, isn't it? It's using an idea like that, kind of attaching yourself to a commercial, very graphic object, and telling the world, look, this is important. This is important.
It's this important.
Yeah.
It's not that important.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the key thing.
I hear you. I got you. Yeah. I just love the thinking behind it.
But artists have always messed around with scale.
Yeah.
You make something incredibly small, you make something incredibly big, and the way that you feel about it changes. So it's nothing new.
Yeah.
But I think making them into actual objects was the key thing, rather than just painting them like a still life or something.
But what an amazing thing as well that you've got the chance. You clearly met some of your idols through it.
Yeah, that's mad, isn't it? Because we all have dreams as kids, and my dream was to be like Paul Weller,
right?
Or to play the guitar like
who you've met, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right, there you go. Another one on the list.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, very, very lucky. Very lucky to meet me that day.
What a guy as well.
But I mean, I wanted to play the guitar like George Benson or Brian Setzer. And then, you know, I just I gave up on that because I just wasn't never going to be good enough.
Right.
So to accidentally find, I mean, a brilliant moment for me was meeting Robert Plant once, right? And this was at the Royal Albert Hall, and Robert Plant had a great long line of people waiting to meet him and sign autographs and do all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And he was aware of my work, and so I was introduced to him as a fellow artist.
Right.
And he stopped and we talked for 5 or 10 minutes, and then he said, "I'm really sorry, I've got to sign a load of stuff." And I should be at the end of the line, queuing up to meet him, you know. So it was like a mad moment.
A great moment as well. So how old is Supersize Art then? How old is it now?
He's 11. It was October 2009.
Oh, so
I actually went back through my old day diaries to try and find out where I first wrote about it.
Yeah.
And I tell you, we were talking about being in business for a long time,
Yeah.
and the stuff that we've done. I tell you what, if you want to give yourself a fright, look at your diaries for 10 years
Yes,
ago and
yeah.
see what you're doing.
And 10 years flies past very quickly, doesn't it just?
But all of that work, you know, reams and reams of entries in the diary, you know.
Yeah,
Christ.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the book that's recently been published. I did get a glimpse of that as well. If you could just hold that up, just flash it at the camera briefly there, because that really is
heavy.
An accolade
Really
on its own. Let's have a look at that. Wow.
You could, you know, kill someone without if you wanted to.
This has got the full archive in there, has it?
It's not everything, Dennis. It's there's 95 of my pieces in there, and then there's you know, collaborations by, you know, various people that commissioned the work, or sometimes they wanted to be anonymous, so they're you know, other people that might own editions.
Right.
But there's some good stories in there, and some really unusual and interesting people. We this is one of the things that's got considerably better because of the past year that we've had. It was likely to have just been a book of pictures with you know, a few notes next to it, but because of lockdown, we were able to you know, get access to an incredible amount of people who were just bored.
Right.
And would do anything.
Right.
So yeah, we were really lucky, and you know, we also, you know, we got Peter Blake wrote me a letter, and then Andrew Marr, who's a social historian, wrote me forward to it, and we've got people like Andrew Lloyd Webber in there.
You archive them yourself, as in you shoot them? Right, in your studio?
Yeah.
So that's
well, it's again, it's quite interesting. So to start with, they were all shot by a mate of mine, Phil Serby, who's actually in the book as well.
Right.
So a professional photographer.
Right.
And then I started shooting them myself, and that's because I wanted them to be kind of like very natural looking. So there's, you know, they're lighter on the left. You know, they're all shot in natural light with light coming in from the left, casting a slight shadow to the right.
Right.
So it doesn't look like a copy photograph, which has got even light all over it. Phil's photographs are great.
Gotcha.
I wanted it to feel like you could be holding it in your hand.
Yes.
That was
clever.
my approach with the photography.
Attention to detail.
But also, there's also a lot of records that aren't in there because the photographs are crap.
Right, okay.
Great. So there's, you know, there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
There's about 35 pieces that I've painted that aren't in the book.
Right. But you need to remind me on this now, because your fine attention to detail comes from an illustration background, doesn't it?
It wasn't really illustration. I did design for print. I did
Right.
City and Guilds design for print. I worked
okay.
at the age of 16 for 2 years.
Right.
And I started working in advertising in 1984.
Gosh,
so,
right.
you know, so that was my first job at a big advertising agency.
Yeah.
You know, you needed to do visuals back then, so I had to have hand lettering skills. I also needed to be able to make things, you know, stick things together, present it so it looks like
all of those skills have culminated.
You know, use a scalpel without chopping your fingers off.
Yeah.
You know, paper sculpture.
Uh-huh.
You know, making stuff. All of that were all skills that you had to have working in a busy studio.
And you're using them all now, though.
Yeah,
in this work, all of them.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And it's it's great. You know, it's great to be able to do it. But there's also, I mean, I can paint as well. I mean, my dad's a fine artist, and I can paint and sculpt. And so there's some of them have involved actual painting. So the last one in the book is When Doves Cry by Prince, which has a beautiful painting.
One of my idols.
That's the last one in the book, actually, from 1984.
Right.
There we go, viewers. And what's interesting about this as a piece is, and this was pointed out to me after I'd done it, is that, of course, Prince is this wonderful sort of gentle creative, and he was oppressed by a giant record company, pushing him in from all sides. So
it's very indicative in that work there. Gosh.
Yeah.
And what an icon he was. I mean, honestly, his genius is something to behold.
Great guitar player as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Amazing guitar player, which much like George Benson.
Yeah.
You don't make a fortune by being a great guitar player.
Right.
George Benson, found his voice, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And Prince was, kind of hid his guitar playing. Really.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of both of them, actually.
Yeah.
So this pop-up then, how old is this pop-up? This is new, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I'm in St Albans. It's Christopher Place. It's a shopping centre. I live about a 15-minute walk away from here.
Perfect.
So this particular one was open a month before the latest lockdown, and where are we? 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
So that long. And the reason I've had these pop-ups is because this show that you see here was actually at the RAC Club in London in February.
Oh.
And I also had another show, was supposed to be at South by Southwest in Austin. So I sent 12 pieces out to Austin.
Right.
This show was then locked down at the RAC Club for the first lockdown for 3 months.
Yeah.
And when I managed to prize it off the wall, I didn't have anywhere. Normally you've got another show lined up. We can't have any shows at this time.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, why don't I see if I can have a pop-up? And it also coincided with the launch of the book. Again, we couldn't have the traditional book launch. Signings, etc. We were supposed to be doing that in America as well. Can't do that.
Yeah.
So it's been an opportunity for me to launch the book here.
Right. Well, look, power to you, because these are crazy times.
Yeah.
Where there's a will, there's a way. I turned up today because we were allowed to. I was literally checking the night before. Shops are going to be open. Fine, okay, I'll get down here. Yeah. I think we're about a distance, a metre apart. What's the rule?
You're fine.
Keep changing.
I've had COVID.
Right.
I've had it.
You have?
I've had it.
Wow, there's a revelation.
A month ago.
Goodness me. What are the symptoms like? Were they pretty negligible for you?
Yeah, just a bit of cold.
Wow.
But,
goodness me.
Tested positive, and so did my oldest son.
Right.
Fine.
Right.
But you'll be fine.
Gosh. Wow. Now this is.
We think
it's all current, isn't it? How more current can we be? We're talking about COVID.
Well, I think that's important. I mean, we do that in the book as well. I mean, we've got Piers Morgan writes in the book about dealing with the strains of current life. He also talks about getting fired.
Right.
Crashing and burning.
That's happened a few times.
Absolutely. But I do think it's important, because we're going to look back on this time. And as I said, the book wouldn't have been as good. I wouldn't have had this pop-up show.
I'm with you, yeah.
So there's all sorts of positives, and you've got to, it just does look so grim out there, and I know it's going to be a really, really tough time ahead for an awful lot of people. I've got a lot of mates in the music business who are on their arses, and it's desperate. But I mean, out of times like that, really good things
absolutely
do happen. And things have been very positive for me this year. I've had a great year, but other people may maybe that are struggling at the moment, they'll find that maybe they're forced into a different path that they would normally have taken, and that might, who knows what that might land up.
You've hit upon the main message that I have through Fresheye. You know, is that even in adverse times, creativity will keep pushing through.
Well, I think
it
even
will.
more so.
Yeah.
Even more so. I mean, you know, if you look back at, you know, like the late 70s when politically it was awful. There was all that unemployment and stuff, and out of that came a sort of the anger of youth and the punk movement and all sorts of poetry and all sorts of amazing creative things came out of that period. I think when everyone's comfortable and relaxed, they just
You
get
said
fat.
it. You said it. You said it. And the most iconic, inspiring pieces of art seem to come out of adversity.
Yeah,
I mean,
they do,
when I look at 80s music, for instance, there didn't seem to be a lot of money around there, the technology back then to produce music like it's produced now, albeit that some of the older stuff is great, a great way of producing anyway. But you know, the humble beginnings that some of those bands started from, and people meeting each other in coffee shops, and let's start a band, but listen to the music of 20 years ago. It's holding up.
Oh man,
you know.
absolutely, yeah, and it shows you that you know, there's all sorts of tools that are available now.
Yeah,
but it doesn't make the music any better.
That's
Does
right.
it, really?
That's
sometimes
right.
the fewer choices you've got, the better it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've just been reading about the Human League, and they used to laugh at people learning 3 chords.
Right.
Because all they needed was one finger. and the program just went like that, and then moved that around, and there's the song. You know?
Or like that, yeah. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm inspired, and I'm inspired again. Just coming to St Albans, because I was here for 20 years. I mean, 6 years ago, I used to be living here. It's a fantastic town. So obviously we're going to plug that as well. St Albans is amazing.
It's a great town, and it's you know, it's being actually in a shop for a period of time. You learn a few things. One of them is like everyone's got a dog.
Right. Yes.
The other
they do,
one is like
yeah.
lots of people seem to come to St Albans from the surrounding areas. You know, when they've got a day off. You know, and day offs and opportunities have been few and far between. So to choose to come to St Albans on your day off means it must be quite a draw. And it's always been a vibrant city. I was very lucky I was born here, you know.
Oh, you were born here?
Yeah, Jackie
oh, gosh,
and I
I didn't
were
know
both
that.
born here, yeah.
Oh, wow. Both of you were, right.
Yeah.
Right.
We met on St Albans Market.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a revelation then.
Because my dad's an artist, and he had a stall on St Albans Market sitting doing his watercolours.
Oh my goodness.
And I used to help him.
Yeah. Wow.
And,
Wow.
that's where I met Jackie.
So what a turn up then, that you've realised your artistic dream, and you're here presenting it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, what a lucky boy.
Yeah, that is an amazing story. That really is. That really is. Wow. So we'll end it there. We'll keep it running for a little bit, because some of the outtakes I'll put in there. But no, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's really, really exciting. It really is. I do have these set memories of certain things, and one of them was talking to you and Andy in the pub.
Yeah.
And I said, look, at least you're realising your dream. It's at the beginning.
Yeah.
But because like full-time artists,
Yeah.
you can count them on one hand that I know, full-time. You know?
Oh, that's Adam, look, from Magamamas. He worked in here for a day.
Oh.
He was going around giving everyone hot drinks that are
sweet.
queuing up.
Wow.
Not even for his shop.
Wow. Wow.
St Albans, mate. What about
Yeah,
that?
there's goodwill here. There's goodwill here.
Yeah, no, honestly, it is an amazing thing, and I suppose it's you know, what you were talking about, perseverance. If you think you've got a good idea, it's very easy to not see it through, and you have to sort of see things at key points that make you think that it might work. It might work.
Yes.
And I remember in the early days, I used to get told, "You're on your phone again."
Right.
You know, spending all your time. No, I'm not on my phone. I'm because it was the early sort of cowboys days of Twitter, where all the bosses were on it.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yes.
So you could actually go, like I got to chat to Dylan Jones, the editor of GQ,
Right.
on Twitter. He then wrote about me and bought a piece.
Nice.
But, you know, 10 years before that, you'd have never been able to do that. You would never have got the access to the top people.
That's right.
So, because they're curious minds,
Yeah.
they go on whatever the latest technology is,
Yeah.
and they'll actually be there.
Right.
So
right.
they've migrated from there to Instagram, and they're probably on WhatsApp or
Yeah,
something
most
else now.
Yeah, yeah. So you've had a feature in GQ then. That's great.
Oh, I have you know that this book was voted one of the 10 coolest things on the planet.
Wow.
in GQ.
Wow.
Dennis. Did you not know?
This is the whole point of this video, you know, just get these things out and explode it out again. Because I've always respected Condé Nast, always have.
Yeah.
Because I used to freelance there myself. You know, in terms of what's happened to the magazine market, like they're still alive.
They still are, because they're the best and
Yeah.
the last ones standing. And
Yeah.
it's like you'll always be able to buy underwear from Marks and Spencers. You know.
Yes.
It's like the world England would actually collapse into the sea. It came close to losing Marks and Spencers, and it might well they might well come close again.
That nearly did happen.
It nearly did happen. It might
Yeah,
happen.
Woolworths went
Again.
before they did.
Yeah, well, they're also American. But
I didn't know that. Well, see, I'm getting an education here,
There
right?
you
Because
go.
everybody remembers
With
that.
Dylan Jones, right?
Yeah.
So it's like 10 years ago that first thing happened with him, and he wrote back with The Independent.
Yeah.
And then there was a show, a Bowie show, a couple of years ago in London, and it coincided with Dylan's Bowie book, which was like an oral history, really, really interesting.
Right.
And I got a message from him asking me if I'd do an interview.
Right.
And I thought, oh great, he's going to interview me about my work, how fantastic.
Yeah.
And then the detail came through from his secretary. He was asking me to
Right.
interview him about his book. And I was like, what the fuck? You want me to interview you? And it was at this Bowie show that there were like 20 artists that had all painted something Bowie.
Gosh.
But what Dylan wanted is he wanted an artist to interview him rather than a journalist, because we think in a different way.
That's true.
So
You interviewed David Bowie.
I didn't interview David Bowie. He's interviewed him a number of
I
times.
mean, right.
I interviewed Dylan Jones about the David Bowie.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing you met David Bowie back
No,
in the day.
I
You never
never
did.
met
Oh,
him.
okay.
I'd love to have met him. I got close.
Well, you met the Rolling Stones. That's as good as. That's as good as.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to have met Bowie.
Yeah.
I mean, I did. I got a copy of his copy of Liza Jane, a scan of it from the
Right.
Bowie archive to paint.
Wow.
So I did have I've had some dealings, but I got quite close, but I never got to.
Yeah.
Time was running out for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, look,
I never made
it's
it.
going to be remembered
But
forever.
precisely. I've been playing Bowie all day.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
If you want anyone to come in your shop, just put Bowie on
Oh.
really loud. And before you know it, your place
Well, the
is
specials did it for me. I'm a two-tone head from back in the day. I used
Yeah.
to be a rude boy. Well, I still am at heart.
full. I can tell.
So that was
I
amazing
can tell
to hear
by
that.
your turn up.
Yeah.
Like Fresheye.
This is great. This is so good. Just very intrigued as to the vinyls themselves. How and where are they made?
Okay, well, there's a company in Uxbridge that just cuts the discs out for me and puts the main grooves in them.
Let's get into
Yeah.
that one.
And then...
Look at that.
And then the whole thing goes to a model maker.
Yeah.
And he does the bespoke centre for me and also polishes the outside edge. And that's the bespoke bit's really interesting. So like this is pre-technology where the records used to stack. So
Right.
it doesn't have the grips all around the outside. Okay?
Aha.
That's just smooth. But
Yeah.
when you move along to one like this, you can see this has got the ridges all the way around the outside, and that's
Yeah.
so that when the records all stack together on an old-fashioned record player and they drop down, they lock together, so the top ones that doesn't slip.
Gotcha.
So they still run at 45.
That's
So,
very interesting.
Yeah, so that's got 4 slots.
It's
That's got 3
fresh,
slots.
like
that's got
Fresheye.
4 slots. So it's all made bespoke, but they have got a real big bit of
Yeah, awesome.
It's fresh, like Fresheye.
It's not called supersized for nothing.
Yeah, it's fresh, like Fresheye. It's fresh, like Fresheye.